Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mississauga. Great to have you with us. It's our pleasure to have you join us this morning for our virtual town hall. We would like to welcome MPP Nina Tangri for joining us today. And before I officially introduce our special guest, I'd like to quickly review the process and virtual protocols for this morning's call. All attendees will remain on mute as we are recording this event for later use. I will be able to unmute you if you would like to answer one of the questions that MPP Nina Tangri is asking this morning. This is interactive. She would like your feedback on a number of issues, so we'll be getting to that momentarily. If you would like to answer one of the questions, you can raise your hand and I will unmute your microphone and you will have 1 minute to respond to the question at hand. The raise your hand option is located at the bottom of your screen in the middle of the application screen. This is an interactive session to collect information based on the series of discussion points that were available on the registration page of the event, as well that they were also sent out with the confirmation and reminder email. Raising your hand is for responding to the questions from Nina. If you'd like to ask a question, we will have time for a Q&A at the end. Please click the Q&A box at the bottom of the application screen and pose your question. Your question will be reviewed by MBOT staff, and we will make every attempt to answer as many questions as possible. Those we are not able to get to, we will pass on to the MPP's office and ask her to respond. So it gives me great pleasure at this moment to introduce the Member of Provincial Parliament for Mississauga-Streetsville, Nina Tangri. Nina has served as Vice Chair on the Board of Directors at Credit Valley Hospital in Mississauga and was a Cabinet Member for Erin Oak Kids. In June 2019, Nina was appointed Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation, and Trade. Previously, Nina also served as chair of the Standing Committee on Social Policy, mandated with studying and reviewing policy related to healthcare, education, and social services. Please give a warm virtual welcome to MPP Nina Tangri.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. And thank you for joining us today to provide feedback on your local needs and priorities. I think I can confidently say that the #1 priority of every elected official is the health and safety of our constituents and the people of Ontario more broadly. However, as we think about the real long-term impacts of the COVID-19 outbreak, we also need to ensure we are prepared once the state of emergency is lifted so people can safely and confidently participate in local life again. Over the past weeks, people and businesses have done their part to contain this virus. But as we've all seen, the impacts of following the public health advice comes at a cost to our families, our workers, businesses, and our communities. Ontario lost over 400,000 jobs in March alone. Those job numbers underscore the significant economic impact of COVID-19 and serve as a stark reminder that behind every economic statistic is a family, a worker, and a business owner. And while we've all been impacted by COVID-19, each sector and each region of the province has experienced it differently. That's why it's so important to be here to hear directly from you on the economic impacts of COVID-19 in Mississauga and to make sure we know what you need. So once again, I'd like to thank David, Brad, and the Mississauga Board of Trade, not just for today's forum, but for the great work you do in constantly addressing the business community right here in Mississauga and also across the broader sector in the province. So today our government's looking at you to assess the broader economic and societal impacts of actions taken to address COVID-19. I ask you to provide me with the recommendations regarding the economic actions necessary to help restart sectors and of course recover. We need to see the impacts that COVID-19 has had on local constituents such as revenue, workforce, and business activities. And from here, I'll be reporting back on ideas for innovative short-term and long-term approaches to respond to the economic challenges caused by this pandemic. What our local needs are and priorities here in Mississauga, So this is your opportunity to have your say and let our government know what we can do to help get the economy restarted, moving forward, all while still being able to keep safe. So I'll move it right back to you, David, and I look forward to hearing all of your comments and concerns.
Well, thanks, Nina. Of course, COVID has affected a great number of businesses. And so the first item that we would like to put up for discussion are the impacts of COVID-19 on various businesses. So the first discussion point to put to our audience is, how has the COVID-19 crisis impacted your sector, and how is your sector measuring this impact? So the discussion point is open now. You can click on the raise your hand if you'd like to make a comment on how it's impacting your sector. I know, Nina, there's a number of businesses that do, they speak to us on a day-to-day basis. They talk to Brad, they talk to me. And of course, some of the more harder hit sectors are the restaurant sector, but certainly healthcare is another one that's been heavily hit, especially companies that are dealing with PSWs and putting those in front of their elderly clients that need help. So we've got one comment from Lucy Shaw. Lucy is with Nurse Next Door. So Lucy, I will unmute you and please go ahead. Oops, well, let's try that again. Sorry, Lucy.
Okay, can you hear me now?
There we go, yes.
All right, good morning, David and Nina. Thank you so much for taking the time to address everyone's concerns. As you know, we're in the healthcare sector, Nurse Next Door, home care. And like everyone else in healthcare, we are struggling to ensure that we have enough staff to take care of our clients. There is an imbalance in the system that the government, it's awesome. They've offered $4 top-up an hour for our publicly funded PSWs. Unfortunately, that did not trickle down to the private sector. What that has caused is that our PSWs would now, who normally would not work in an LTC, out of choice have decided to work for the next 16 weeks in an LTC to get that top up, and has reduced our staffing levels to our clients who are just as essential and need the care. So I would appreciate if the government could relook at that process, because we do need all of our seniors cared for and well cared for, be it in an LTC, a retirement home, or in their private home.
Thank you. Lucy, yeah, I have heard that from a number of the private care providers. I know today, probably around now, that the federal government has spoken to the provinces and are making an announcement on the pandemic pay. I don't know any details of that yet, so let's see what they've come out with. We have taken your concerns, we have heard from you, and we've given them back to the Premier and to the Ministry to see if there's something that we can do, because we don't want to have a sway that there's nobody left to, especially for those that visit our elderly at home, and we want to make sure that everybody's well looked after. So you need to have enough staff to be able to do that. So it is something that we have taken back directly to the Minister of Health and Long-Term Care, and also to the Premier. So let's hear what the federal government is assisting us with today, and we can move from there to next steps.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question, or the next participant for the discussion, is Catherine. Catherine, your microphone is open. Please go ahead. You'll need to unmute your own microphone there, Catherine.
Can you hear me now?
Now we got you.
Yay, thank you so much. Thank you, David and MBOT, and to MPP Nina Tangri for coming out. My business is in the not-for-profit and charitable sector, and so there's a number of impacts for COVID. First of all, the revenue situation and the granting situation is kicked way down the field in terms of being able to access funds. Not-for-profits and charities are businesses that need to keep their lights on as well. The particular project that I'm working on with an environmental charity entails the hiring of students in the summer and refining a research protocol to comply with the pandemic distancing. And I'm wondering, since we have a revised protocol now under review with experts in municipal and conservancy staff for distancing and masking, etc., what other services or approaches can we take in order to plant trees for climate change research, give kids hands-on STEM in low tree canopy areas, and look towards the future, not just 12 months, but 5 and 10 years out.
Great comments. I know that the federal student grant program has been announced, so I know that they're covering, I think it's 100% of under the student summer program, internship program. Also, I think when it comes to the outdoors, the health and safety obviously is most important for everyone. We want to make sure everyone stays safe. But I believe that ongoing, when we see more of the events that are outdoors, I think that's where we'll be loosening up some of the areas more quickly. Because I think it's just more easy to physically distance when we're outdoors as well. So very soon, to be able to help those, especially when it comes to planting the trees, we don't want to lose that opportunity over the next coming months as well. So thank you, Catherine, for that comment. And I'll make sure that we get that back to the Ministry of not just the Environment, but I think MNR as well, Natural Resources.
So our next discussion point is about public health and the public health response. How has the public health response specifically affected your business or organization? Nina, if we have anybody out there that has a restaurant or a banquet hall or is involved in the tourism area, you know, that certainly has had a dramatic impact on their businesses. So while we're waiting for a hand to be raised on that particular topic, perhaps you can give us a sneak peek at maybe something that you might know about how the province is going to be reopened over the next little while. I know the Premier threw us a bone. There wasn't a lot of meat on the bone when it came to putting dates around the reopening, but certainly he's been teasing us for the last few days. So perhaps you can shed some light on what the plan might be.
Yeah, I think it's very important. First, always we want to look at the health and safety, and much of what the decisions that our government's making is with the from the Chief Medical Officer of Health. So if there's something that we want to bring forward, we talk and discuss with him first, and have the public health officials look at the ways that we can do that, which is why, you know, initially it was nurseries would be open for curbside pickup, but understanding that that's very difficult and that most nurseries are outdoors. And then when we look at private nurseries versus Lowe's and the larger Walmarts of the world that are already open, it was almost a very unfair playing field. So we felt that as long as physical distancing was taking place, so then coming, I think it's Friday morning, that you now can actually go into a nursery and pick out your flowers that you want to plant starting this weekend. So, which is, I think it was very important. We heard a lot of that from a lot of people. But something I think that I think we can look at in the near future is perhaps outdoor patios. Also where, you know, a lot of restaurants can, you know, they're trying to do takeout right now. They're going to be allowed to they can do curbside pickup. But also we want to be able to allow, if it's possible, for outdoor patios where they can still maintain that physical distancing, be able to serve all of us, because we, you know, it'd be nice to be able to get together, take our family out for a meal and support our local restaurants. It's very important. I know that the hospitality industry, it's been extremely devastating, and the travel industry as a whole. And we don't want to see any of these companies go down. So I think it'd be very good idea for us to be able to open up the patios as soon as possible. But like I said, always with maintaining physical distancing. And for those that are working in those restaurants, so the chefs, the wait staff, the owners, their health and safety is very important too. So we want to make sure that no one is being endangered of catching COVID-19 or passing it on to others as well.
Well, we know that so many people will be excited to get out to get outside and partake in some of those restaurants and patios. Absolutely. The next discussion point is about economic impacts and how it's directly touched your local communities. So if anyone has a comment about what they've seen to their local restaurants, to their local venues, to their neighbors, their friends and neighbors, and how this has impacted their local community. If anybody would like to comment on that. I know, of course, Nina, you can appreciate the number of calls that we have from all different sectors, not just the restaurant sector, but the banquet hall sector, and even the economic impacts from people that have had their businesses impacted just by the reduction in sales. So that has certainly been a big topic for us to deal with. One of the comments that was made to us, Nina, is the government seems to be treating sectors differently. That there seems to be a double set of standards, one for, say, essential services and one for non-essential services. And of course, that comment comes from those that are involved in the restaurant sector and the hospitality sector, that they feel that they have kind of been left out in the cold, and not as much help has been extended to them, either by the federal government or the provincial government. Perhaps you can respond to that.
Yeah, so one of the things I think has been very difficult with some of the financial programs the federal government has come out with, often many of these restaurants, they're owned by a mom and pop, and they don't necessarily have the wages going out similar to other companies. So they don't qualify for whether it's the wage subsidy or for, which I'm still getting on my head around. I've heard that's a little difficult to apply for, but also on the grant, not the grant, but the loan program, the 40,000 loan program. Many people who wanted to apply for that, I found that because they don't have enough in wages and salary, have not been able to collect on. So that has been devastating for a lot of them. And let's just take a banquet hall, for example, the trickle effects of canceling a wedding. So you could have not just the banquet hall, all the food, the decorating, the cake, everything that's involved, and all of those companies now have lost that revenue from that one wedding. Take that, multiply that by one banquet hall that may have 2, 3, 4 events a week. It's just been extremely difficult. And then of course people are looking for refunds if they're not able to have their event, and sometimes the banquet hall's not been able to give them those deposits back and just asking them to rebook. It really has been very much devastating for that hospitality industry. Where the comments have come where essential businesses versus non-essential businesses, the first and foremost thing we have to look at obviously is the health and safety of the people who work there and having gatherings. Initially when we talked about having no more than 50 people, still some events were able to take place, but still those 50 people were from different households that could still transfer COVID-19 to one another. And we found that our community numbers were much too high to be able to allow gatherings of that size, which is why we reduced it to 5. It's been very devastating if someone who's in hospital, for example, and is palliative, they can only have one person visit them. It's most certainly the most worst time in the world to have a loved one pass away because you can't be with them. You can't grieve with your family and friends after. Going to the funeral, no more than 10 are allowed. And for those that are cremated now, they don't even allow you to press the button for the cremation. So it's been very, very difficult for anyone in that position. And I've seen that firsthand from many people that I know, regardless of whether they passed away from COVID-19 or not. So that from those perspectives as a community, it's been very, very difficult. But it's certainly not the government's intent to treat essential workers versus non-essential workers, and then even essential workers within each other any differently. We want to make sure that we can try and get the economy moving, get businesses open as soon as possible, but in a safe manner to make sure that we can really contain this community spread and make sure that we don't have, try not to have at least a second wave and have to shut things down again. That's why we're taking it very slowly and opening in a manner that perhaps outdoors is easier at this point. But as soon as possible that we can get restaurants fully open, perhaps we're having less seating so that people can physically distance and have these banquet halls have smaller events. They tend to be quite spacious, so they be able to do that. But of course, the guest list will be much, much smaller, and also allow many more businesses to reopen on the retail side, because for them, it's very difficult. As you know, we are allowing retail operations to reopen as long as to do curbside pickup. And say, for example, if someone can't pay, they don't have the pay tab pay, so it's but only to pay. You can't go in to look around. So we want to really start helping these businesses reopen. It's extremely important that we allow that. So that's how we see it. If there's a specific industry that you're looking at, perhaps that says, okay, we've been treated unfairly, we want to hear from you. We want to know who you are, what it is, what you believe that we can do as a government to help you open faster, and what measures you can take to make sure that physical distancing is taking place.
Thanks, Tina. I know there's probably a lot of parents out there that are happy to hear about the smaller sizes of weddings. Maybe it might mean less cost for them. You mentioned, by the way, I do want to mention to people that have just joined us, we are discussing point by point. And the discussion point we're on right now is how has the economic impact directly touched your local community? If you'd like to respond and let MPP Tangri know how you feel about that, you can raise your hand. The raise the hand button is right in the middle of your, is at the bottom of your app screen, and you can click on that and we will open up your microphone so you can participate. One of the questions that came through the Q&A screen, Nina, is you mentioned about outdoor activities and how they may be able to open up sooner than some other activities. And I'm sure that this question came from a parent about summer camps. Do you think that summer camps will open this summer, whether they're overnight or day camps? Do you have any insight on this?
So we are looking at those who provide summer camps to give us some feedback of their own specific camps on how they will be able to maintain distancing with children. It's extremely difficult. They want to play, they do interact, they do touch each other. So for those who run the summer camps, it's going to be very, very difficult. We have not ruled it out at this point. Obviously, we want to know if we can open. We do want to get them open. And if we'd like to hear from those who run those summer camps on what they themselves can do to help maintain that physical distancing between the youth or the students, or those who are there. Maybe the older summer camps might be a little easier than the younger ages, but no decision has been made on that at this point. We still haven't made the decision on whether schools will be going back. We're probably going to be looking at doing that in the next couple of weeks. It will only be for the month of June. So we have to look at whether that is possible. If we see the spread of the community spread significantly decrease over the next couple of weeks, we can possibly see children going back to school, which in turn would probably allow summer camps to open as well. But if we don't see that over the next couple of weeks, then unfortunately we may see the school year not open again, and may have to wait until September, but no decision's been made on that at this point.
Okay, we'll move on to our next discussion point. This is with respect to some of the crisis measures that have been put forward by both the federal government and the provincial government. Open to our audience to comment by raising your hand. The raise the hand button is in the center of the app screen at the lower part of the screen. You can just click on that. We'll get you on the air. What supports have your organizations received from the government? So we know that there's been a lot of supports. There's been the 10% wage subsidy, 75% wage subsidy, the $40,000 CEBA loan. There's been, of course, from the provincial government, the impacts of lower electricity rates, the lowering of WSIB rates, deferrals on HST, the raising of the threshold on EHT. So we're looking for comments from our audience. Have you been able to participate in any of these programs? Have you taken advantage? Have you applied, tried to apply? Have you been declined for any particular reason? Why have you been declined? We'd like to know from you what your experience has been. I know, Nina, in one of the programs that has been introduced is the commercial rent program. And we have a lot of property managers that are involved in with tenants that are having difficulty paying their rent. The restriction that went on it was a 70% reduction in revenue, and then the participation rate for the landlords and the property managers would be to slash the rents as well. The comment from property managers, property owners is saying we're finding it very difficult to take that kind of hit. And then on the other side of it, the 70% reduction in revenue, companies are saying, wow, that's basically, I was closed for business, and now I still have to come up with 25% of the rent on revenue that I just don't have. So do you have any comments for those the people that are making those comments? Is that 70% was just way too steep, and property owners and managers are saying, we need more help. What do you have to say to them?
Yeah, so we've received a lot of feedback on the rent subsidy from both sides, and it hasn't. I think it's going to be Monday. I think when it's going to be opened up to apply. We've had a lot of comments from a lot of tenants who said that their landlords will not be applying for it, so you're on the hook for 100% of the rent. But we've also heard from a lot of them who said that it's a welcome change. It allows the landlords to put in 25%, take 25% from the landlords, and then the other 50% is shared by the province and the federal government. So it allows us to help them that way. We're waiting to see on Monday what the uptake is to see how easy it is to apply for. It's going to be due through the CMHC. So hopefully it will be easy to apply for, and we will see a large uptake in that to help everyone, especially our tenants that are, a lot of the tenants who are completely closed down. So say, for example, our hairstylists, barbers, nail salons, a lot of the restaurants that have been completely closed, a lot of retail. We want to make sure that we are helping them. We took the position that we would allow the landlords to be able to apply for it. That way it would have been easier for them just to not have to take 100% of the rent from their tenants, that just 25%. So we'll see what the uptake is, and we're getting a lot of comments and a lot of feedback, which we are giving back to Minister Phillips and the Joint Recovery Team. So we want to hear from you, how you feel about that, and let's see how what happens on Monday and what the uptake is. So throughout next week, as people are applying. But like I said, we still want to hear from you on what you think about that. I know the 70% threshold was something a lot of people felt that was hard to be able to reach because there's a lot of, you own a plaza, for example, if you own 4 properties where you don't quite have that 70%, maybe 50% a reduction in rent, that doesn't allow you to qualify. So we want to make sure that we want to help everyone that's really having a difficult time during this COVID-19 pandemic.
Thanks, Nina. We're going to turn the conversation now to post-COVID measures and ask our audience to comment on some of the things that they might be considering doing post-pandemic and what their post-COVID approach to economic recovery might look like. This is a really interesting discussion, Nina. A lot of companies do have a program in place. You know, they've got programs in place to welcome their staff and their customers back to their place of business. So putting in place programs that will keep their customers and their staff safe, sanitation, of course, the distancing. So those kinds of plans. It's going to be a very, very different world out there for a lot of businesses. So if you do have a comment on and are able to share some of your plans for the post-COVID recovery, the post-COVID world, what you might be doing in sales, how you're approaching the market, how you're welcoming your staff back, how you're welcoming your customers back to make those your offices and your places of business safe, because that's a big part of it, Nina, is that customers and staff need to feel that they're coming back into a place that is safe and secure. And so perhaps you have some comments on that and some ideas and recommendations for these businesses on what they can be doing to make their places a more safe and conducive spot for customers and staff.
Yes, so we've heard from a number of different sectors. Say, for example, hair salons have decided that they're going to be turning chairs around so that they're still able to maintain that physical distancing, because it's just the customer, it's also the hairdresser or the barber that has to walk around the chair, and then they also have that direct contact with their customer. So obviously there's going to be looking at masks, a type of gown, maybe not a disposable gown, but a washable one. But there's been some very creative ideas that we have been seeing from many sectors, but we also want to hear from you. We want to hear from people that have taken those measures. And yes, we need to be proactive. The more that you can tell us what you can do in your sector and your business to be able to maintain that physical distancing and safety, the sanitizing that's taking place in your workplace, the things that you're doing to help make sure that you're ready to be open as soon as we see the numbers in our community go down for COVID-19. We want to make sure that once everybody's ready, that we can say, go ahead and open. I know there's a lot of people itching to have their hairdresser open, me included, to make sure that we can get back to some kind of normalcy and interact with our friends and our community and our business owners. People are really looking forward to being able to get back out again. But we really want to hear from you on what you're doing to be prepared for the future. We know restaurants have been able to reset up their tables to be able to have a distance, so only one family sits together, and then there's still that 6-foot distance between them and another customer. And like I said earlier, the patios, I think, is something that we can hopefully open much sooner. But we want to see your creative ideas and your solutions that you feel that we can bring to allow us to say, okay, we know that that sector's ready, and we can go ahead, right ahead and say open and be ready to greet your customers once again.
Well, Nina, I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to having an excuse to relive the 60s and 70s when my hair was a little bit longer. It's given a fresh look on my youth. Although I have to say, there's a lot more gray in this hair than was when I was a teenager. That was a very nice segue into our next discussion point, which is on the post-COVID recovery. Asking our audience, what would you like to see the government do at the provincial level, the federal level, or a combination of the two, or at any level of government? What assistance, what programs would you need to see in place to assist you to get back into a full swing, with the economy? So you can raise your hand and we'll unmute your microphone. Raising your hand is in the center, bottom center of the screen. And if you're shy and you just want to give your comments, you can put them in the Q&A section, and we can pick up the discussion there. But that's a really important one, Nina, because it's a great question to ask. I know that a number of the people that we speak with, the businesses that we speak with, they're a little concerned that especially the 75% wage subsidy, that one's going to end on June the 6th. And the programs all seem to have this end date, which is, coming up very, very rapidly, when they're saying to us, it's going to take us months. We did a survey, Nina, of our members, and the percentage that came back to us, we asked them, when will you be able to recover? And about 20% of them said that we will be able to recover in 1 to 6 months. But the vast majority, over 50% of them, said it's going to take us 6 months to a year. And of course, then there was that other sector, the 20%, that said, we're lost. We're never going to recover from this. We're already closed. And I know the Premier has said we will do whatever it takes to get through this. So what are you thinking? What is the provincial government open to talking about and discussing as far as post June 6 programs that would be extended to assist businesses to get back into full economic bloom?
So I know that, yes, the June date is coming up very quickly. And I know that discussions that the Premier is having with the Prime Minister and other premiers across the country on post-June. So where are we? Where are we with COVID-19? Where are businesses as far as reopening? And they are going to revisit all of the programs at that. Prior to that, they will be revisiting the programs to see what assistance may still be needed. And I completely agree. We are definitely hearing from some businesses that may never recover from this. It's too late, which is very, very sad. And I know I've got a number of businesses. We attend openings at restaurants. They've literally just opened maybe weeks and months prior to this happening and have been closed since. So they've not had any opportunity to raise any revenue. So we certainly want to make sure that we don't want to see anyone go under during this pandemic. So we want to make sure everyone has some assistance. There may be different programs that come into place post-June. I don't think it'll be post-pandemic at that point. I think we'll be getting closer perhaps to finding a vaccine, a solution, a cure, hopefully. But in the meantime, we want to help our businesses get back up and running. And I think with the federal government and the provincial governments together, we will look at other solutions, whether it's the same one, whether it's the SERV that will continue for individuals, whether it's the loan program that will be extended or other programs, the wage subsidy. I think that way we'll have to revisit them and look to see whether extending them or perhaps having a new program put in place as a transitional program, perhaps.
Nina, there's a student program that's available, or that's been announced, the CESB program, which is a student benefit for postgraduate students. The Prime Minister announced that it's available from May to August, and students can get $1,250, but there seems to be some controversy about whether it's even available, or how do you apply for it? When will it be opened up so that people can apply for it? Do you have any information on that?
I thought it had, I think it's coming out very soon in the coming days, probably as soon as next week. We had put that question to our federal counterparts, and they were saying that they think it's coming up quite soon. So we're very hopeful that it won't be difficult to apply for. Probably through the MyCRA account. I think it's going to go through there. So hopefully it will be easy to apply for, similar to the way that SERB was. So the students, they're having a very difficult time, and something that we are seeing a lot of. And we have to understand that a student that's going to a university, they may have put on hold their residency in another city or town. And the problem that they're facing now, they're being told to pay their deposits or move in. And of course, because of COVID-19, they can't do that at this point. So the landlords, of course, they need that money to pay their mortgages, and the tenants are saying, well, we can't move in. So we're looking at ways how they can work with each other. I know that that hopefully the commercial rent and the landlord subsidies, that there's somewhere that we can look at so they don't all have to pay out of pocket at this point. It is a very difficult time, I think, for everyone, individuals and especially businesses who just try and finding ways to cope just to stay open. Students are obviously, there's been some help with postgraduates and on their OSAP loan repayments. There's been quite a bit of help there that they don't have to pay yet, and no interest will be accumulating. So that's a big help for students. But we want to make sure that we don't see anybody falling off the cracks. There's also, with students, something that, there's a lot of opportunities in the summer with a lot of the organizations that are open, and maybe some of the businesses that are going to be opening, perhaps where there's opportunity for some jobs there. And I know there's a student initiative with the federal government as far as paying 100% of the student intern program this summer. So we're hoping that's going to help a lot of these students at this point.
Our next discussion point is about how businesses are going to change the way they do businesses after the emergency measures are lifted and we can get back to work. So how do you see your business norms changing as the emergency measures are lifted? If you'd like to comment, you can go to the lower center part of your screen, put your hand up. We'll unmute your microphone and you can share some of your ideas about how that may be happening. I know that Nina, a lot of the businesses that we see or talk to, it's about putting up barriers, like they've got plexiglass barriers that they're putting up. A lot of the retail outlets have increased their increased the amount on their tap point of sale terminals. Certainly offices that are putting their desks and chairs farther apart. Boardrooms. I mean, we have in our own office, we have a boardroom that will seat 20 around a table and 40 in the room, and we're actually putting up. We have a capacity, and then we have a COVID capacity, and the COVID capacity is 10 as opposed to 20 around the table, just so we can maintain that physical distancing. I would encourage our audience to share some of their ideas about what they are doing in their businesses to get ready for the post-COVID situation. Nina, what are you hearing from your constituents, from the businesses up in Streetsville area? What are they planning to do, and how are they changing the way that they're doing business in order to get ready for the return?
Yeah, I think a lot of them have been very proactive and getting ready, and the plexiglass has been an excellent option for many of them. And a lot of our Ontario companies are actually manufacturing it, which is great news. But some have thought of looking at curtains, maybe in between customers, which it's not as good an option. But it's a great way to measure, I think, if that distance, if that's suitable. Also, I think, like I spoke earlier, I think in some hairdressing salons, they've talked about reversing chairs so that there's more space between chairs. They can utilize the space much better. A lot of people, of course, are putting markings on the ground, which are easy. It makes it very easy for you to know that you are 6 feet, 2 meters apart. I think we've all seen that in the grocery stores when we go. They've done an excellent job of trying to help maintain that distancing. But there's been a lot of people, and it's an unfortunate thing to see in the future where we're all walking around with masks and gloves. It's a different world we're in right now. So I know a lot of people are saying, okay, we're going to continue with the masks and the gloves for at least a period of time until we know that COVID-19 has been either eliminated or it's at a very, very minimal place in the community. So I think that's something we're going to see a lot of. But like I said, many companies have come with some great suggestions and solutions, and I want to hear from you. I want to see what you are doing in your sector, and maybe it's something that we can take, if it's a great idea, and take it out to the broader sector in the province and say, here's a great idea. If we can all adopt this, we can open many businesses much faster. So please provide us with that input. It's extremely important.
So Catherine has a comment. She's going to tell us what she's doing in her business to get ready for the return after the emergency measures are finished. Catherine, what are you doing in your business to get ready for post-COVID?
Doing, David, is two things. Swimming upstream to the notion that all small and micro business has to be done in the home. So with the kind of project work that I'm doing with the environmental research charity, we actually need a storefront because it's no longer advisable for small groups of students to come for training in a room that's inside a condo, because it's not safe if the business owner is also living in that space. So the thing to do differently will be to outreach with and find business partners who may have some boardroom space that would be available, because there's a training and safety component. Also working with schools. So the question is, when are the schools going to be reopened? How is that space going to be accessed? And that's a question and a query that we're doing as we outreach for our October 2020 planting.
So there you have it, Nina. I mean, there's all kinds of businesses that are looking for spots, looking for places that they're going to be able to conduct their business because they've been disrupted in some other fashion. I'm not sure what comments you have about that or what suggestions you might have for businesses that are in that situation.
I think it puts something like the Mississauga Board of Trade in a great position to perhaps link businesses or organizations together. Many, if the rent currently or in the near future is extremely high, maybe share space for the near future for some locations. It's not going to work for everyone. You can't put a restaurant, for example, with a pet shop. So we want to make sure that it's safe for everyone. But after hours, if you have an office, for example, with a large boardroom that you use 9 to 5, maybe post-pandemic, but an organization with a group of students could use in the evening to do some training. I think that could work very, very well. And it's something that I think a lot of organizations have been doing in the past, but now maybe for the future, the Board of Trade has a great board office. I know many businesses that have an extremely can also be used using technology as well. So I think there's one thing that's come out of this is a lot of creative thinking on how to use virtual or themes like we are doing today, where we can still chat with each other without having to physically be together. So I think this is a huge opportunity for us to really take technology by the horns and utilize it as much as we possibly can. Still, of course, understanding that physical space is important. And sometimes to do that kind of training that Catherine's talking about is you need to have it in a classroom setting. So we have to look at all sides of it. We want to make sure that, after this, that we are still, once while maintaining distance, that we need to have that social interaction with each other too. So we know that especially with mental health right now, we want to make sure that a lot of people are feeling very, very lonely at this point. Even if they're living with other members of their family, it's very difficult. They're used to being outside and socializing with other people. So understand that there are many supports out there for those of you who are feeling lonely or frightened or scared and just don't understand what's happening right now. So we want to make sure that we have supports for individuals. And right now, for those who do own businesses, it's almost a double whammy, as we say, where businesses have really taken it. It's been very, very difficult because not only are they trying to keep their businesses open or trying to find ways to reopen their business, but they've also got that personal side if they have no income coming in whatsoever. So it is very, very difficult, and this is why we opened this joint recovery committee, put it together so we can have businesses tell us what they can be doing to help us expedite them opening up as soon as possible.
I was interviewing Dr. Jason Bakioki this morning on the stress of returning to the workplace as well. So the mental health aspect for there's two camps. There are the people that want to come back to work, and employers are saying you can't come back yet because we haven't got specifics in place. And then there's the other ones that are saying, no, I like this working remotely. I don't want to come back. And the employers say, no, you have to come back. So the doctor was in the house giving advice on both. My question for you, Nina, and, as we wrap up here, is as a politician, you're used to being out in crowds all the time, and that's where you do your best work. You're shaking hands, and I know you're a very friendly person, so you like to chat with people and really get one-on-one with them to understand what's going on with them. How is this going to change the political landscape for individual politicians such as yourself? What measures are you going to be taking and needing to exercise? We know that the president and the vice president took heat south of the border because they weren't using the appropriate protective equipment with masks and going into hospitals and not even paying attention to their own rules. What do you think is going to happen to you and your political colleagues when it comes to wearing that protective equipment when you go out into the public?
That's a great question. I mean, we just yesterday, for example, I joined the Canada India Foundation and Tamarind Restaurant to deliver over 1,000 meals to Trillium Health Partners. And of course, we wore our masks, we wore our gloves as we were taking the food out and putting it out for them. And it's extremely difficult because you want to have that conversation with people to get feedback from them and to thank them. And it's just really, really difficult to do that. It is unfortunately a bit of a new normal for us right now. Hopefully in the not too distant future, we can do away with the masks and do away with the gloves and once again, perhaps shake hands. I don't know if that's going to be happening anytime soon. It is extremely difficult when we are out in the community so much. And now we're hearing many of our events, our community events, our business events that are being cancelled right now. It's a different world that we're in the very near future. But we are very optimistic and hopeful that we will overcome COVID-19 and we will find a vaccine, we will find a cure, we will find ways that we can get back to some kind of a normal routine in the not too distant future. And I'm really looking forward to that time again. But in the meantime, we must we must stay safe. We must stay home as much as we possibly can. And like I said, we're still out in the community doing as much as we can. Many of my colleagues are out every day. We're delivering PPE. We're delivering meals to people, sometimes to seniors who are at home alone. We want to make sure that they're not left alone. And sometimes it's just that conversation through the door that we've been able to have with some people, which is, if it's comforting to them, we want to make sure that we are there for them. But yes, it has been very difficult for a lot of our colleagues. We're all talking. Our Premier, probably more than anybody, who was so used to being together for at least 4 days of the week at Queen's Park. And we have our caucus meetings similar to this, where we're all chatting with each other, talking about how we can all work together, bringing the concerns and from our business and our constituents back to the Premier. And he's certainly looking forward to the day that he can get back out and meeting with all of us and with all of you out there.
Well, I know many people have suggested that I wear a mask, Nina, and I think that's just because I have a face for radio and it has nothing to do with any health measures. Before we wrap it up, Nina, I do want to let the audience know that we do have your colleague from the federal government, Navdeep Bains, is going to be with us next Tuesday at 5:30 for a town hall to speak about what's happening at the federal level and to get feedback as Nina has done with us today for the provincial level. And we're continuing this series, Nina. We've opened up our virtual event series, so where we would have people come out to a venue. We've moved that to the virtual world as well. So we have Lindsay Rice as part of our Women's Leadership series. And Lindsay is the only female race car driver that's driving for the Audi team. And then we have John Lidieri, who's the founder of Hero Burger, and he has some very interesting concepts that he shared with me. And I have to ask him, how are they working? Because it sounded like they were going to be perfectly in line with what's happening now in the COVID, the post-COVID area. So it's almost like he's a soothsayer for the Nostradamus for the future, because the idea that he shared with me months ago, it's going to come to fruition now. So as we wrap up, Nina, I'd like to give the floor back to you for your final comments, and then I will take it from there.
Well, once again, thank you, David. Thank you to Mississauga Board of Trade and to all of you for participating today. I do look forward to any comments and remarks that you have. If you haven't had an opportunity to ask today, please feel free to go to ontario.ca/reopen and please provide us with your feedback. And always feel free to contact me at my office at 905-569-1643. We're here to support you. We want to find ways that we can reopen our businesses as soon as possible, as soon as safe. So please give us your ideas, your creativity, whatever way that you feel that we can reopen to do it safely whilst maintaining physical distancing. And as I said earlier, please stay safe and please stay home.
Excellent, Nina. Thanks so much for being with us. And it's always great to have you with us. Please feel free to come back and join us anytime. And we're happy to get some feedback for you and the minister that you support. I want to thank each and every one of our attendees to be being with us today. This has been recorded. It will be put up on our website within the next couple of days. So if you missed any of it, you're welcome to join us in a post-event production. In the meantime, I want to thank each and every one of you for being with us, and we wish you continued success from the Mississauga Board of Trade. Thanks, everybody.